Greetings all. My name is Graham Adamson. I have the pleasure of being the coordinator of the OAR program, or Aging with Expectation, with an aim to enhance the later years of older people. This month's topic is what happens after you die, and there'll be a conversation between Dr. Francis Macnab and Dr. Steven Koski on this topic. It's a great topic. I'm sure it's one that we all have thought about at various times, but have come to no conclusions. I wonder if we'll get any conclusions today. Anyway, it's the topic. It's a good one, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you at the end. Over to you, Stephen.
So, Francis, great to see you.
Yeah.
Glad that we have this chance to connect and to have a conversation again.
Yeah,
so this summer, in America, it's summer. And, I'm continuing to have to show up on Sunday morning and come up with a sermon. And for the summer, what I did is I asked people, what are your questions? So what questions would you like to ask, and would you like the preachers like me to engage in? And then we will build our whole summer series around the questions that people submitted. Abraham Heschel, I love that. Abraham Heschel said that, we're probably closer to the divine when we're asking questions than when we think we have all of the answers.
Yeah.
So we're wrestling with questions. And one of the questions I thought we would center our conversation around, because I've not preached as many sermons as you preached in your life, but I've preached a lot of sermons. I hesitate counting how many sermons that I've preached in my life. And this sermon, based on this one question that we're going to talk about today, I received more feedback than any other sermon that I've ever preached. Both positive, and those who say I disagree with you, which I love that, which means they're listening. So I don't mind when people disagree. But the question that I based the sermon around: what happens after we die? Exactly right. Oh, exactly right. So somebody submitted that question, and the minute I saw it, I was like, oh, okay. I have 20 minutes in a sermon to respond to this. But interestingly enough, it's the one sermon that I received more feedback, more engagement, more people were interested in this topic than any other topic I've ever preached on. What do you think about that?
I suppose I'm astonished that people want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Do I want to talk about it? What do you think?
Well, I apologize, but whether you want to talk about it or not, we're going to talk about it. I just don't expect you to agree with me.
Okay.
I think there are some people, some preachers who claim they know with utter certainty everything there is to know about the furniture of heaven, the temperature of hell, and they claim to hold the guest list for both of those places. You wouldn't be surprised. I'm not one of those people. So I can honestly say, and I said this in my sermon, what happens after we die? I don't really know. And I'm not going to stand up here and pretend that I do know. But I suspect, in fact, I have a deeply I have a deeply held belief and trust that there's something more. I don't know what that more is, but that's the word that I would use. More. That death is the transition from this life to the mystery of something more. And that mystery, well, we often think of mystery as a negative word. I actually don't think mystery is negative. I don't think mystery is the absence of meaning. I think mystery is just the presence of something greater than our minds can comprehend. I mean, the poet Mary Oliver said, truly we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. She said, let me keep my distance from those who think they have all the answers.
Yeah.
Let me keep company, she said, with those who look with astonishment and say, look, and then they bow their heads in reverence. So what do you think about this idea, just this sense of something more?
Why do we need something more? Should we not be satisfied with what we have? Should we not practice being satisfied? So this is it. What we have is the gift. What we have is a gift that is good enough. Why do we want to come for more? Supposing we settle for what we have. So this is it. This is enough. This is good. I can enjoy it.
You know, I think that's so true. My question would be, can we have both? Can't we settle for what is and appreciate the gift of now? I mean, I think people forget, people don't realize that whenever the Bible, for example, talks about eternity, in my understanding of the Greek of that word, doesn't mean quantity, doesn't mean life hereafter. That it actually means a quality of life right now, right here, right where we are. That we experience eternity in the now, in the moment. But I'm wondering if it's possible to just appreciate that every breath, every moment, every day is sheer gift.
This is it.
While at the same time trust that goodness doesn't end, that goodness continues. Mark, you know, our good friend Marcus Borg, the theologian, the progressive theologian, before he died, it was actually shortly before he died, he said, well, is there an afterlife? I don't have a clue, but I'm confident that the goodness that has held me up in this life will hold me up in death. He said, we die into God. I don't have a clue what that means, but I don't need to know. Now, I thought that was a pretty healthy perspective. What do you think?
Yes, I agree with that. We'd be clamoring around wanting to know what's next, what's there, so this is what we have. This has been good. This is good. I can enjoy the present moment. If we can do that, that's gratitude.
Yeah. You know, I have a friend who's a pastor here in the United States. he flatlined for 2 minutes. He was actually at one moment pronounced dead, but he came back to life. And we've probably read about these experiences. We've heard of these experiences. Now he described things you often hear and you wonder if it's true or not, about a white light, about a sense of overwhelming peace and being at one with everything. But there is something he said that really caught my attention. So he flatlined, he was pronounced dead, and he came back to life. And he said he had this experience that he described as laying in a field of wildflowers, like this field with these beautiful wildflowers. But in a nearby field, he could hear his father. Now, his father suffered from severe mental illness while he was alive, and his father died by suicide. And this man said that he could hear his father laughing, just laughing. Now, obviously, we don't know how much of that is real, how much of that is imagined, how much of that is projected. But when he told me that story, I actually got tears in my eyes, because I imagined my father. I imagined my father who died from Alzheimer's. You know, I was able to hold him when he died, and he didn't even know who I was. And I could just imagine this mystery of something more, of somehow my father being free from that horrible illness, being free from everything that confined and restricted him. And I was reminded of, you know, that actually you were the first one to point me to this verse in the book of Psalms, where the psalmist describes salvation this way: "You have set my feet in a spacious place." So I had this overwhelming sense of freedom for my father. And somehow that was really important to me. What do you think of that?
What do I think of that? I think those moments of closure, as it were, those moments of saying something has happened in my life and now it's over, and it was good, and I was able to revisit it in a peculiar way, and that was good. All that is great gift. Great gift.
You know, I love the emphasis on goodness. There's this passage in scripture that I turn to a lot, that I think describes this mystery of something more. In Romans 8, where it says there is nothing in all creation, there is nothing in life or death that can ever separate us from that goodness. There is nothing that can ever separate us from love. So if love, just if I presuppose that love, goodness, is the ultimate nature of reality, then whatever is after death, whatever that mystery is, must be good, must be love, because we can never be separated from that goodness. What do you think?
Yes, that's good. But I think if it's possible to let those things look after themselves, let them be there, rather than us saying, oh, what is it? What will it be? What should I be doing? Stop a moment and say, what is there? Let it be there. And then I say, good, thanks. That's good. Do we need anything more than that?
I love that. Do we really need any more than that? What I'm hearing you say is, why don't we just trust that?
That's
Why
right.
do we kind of fret and get anxious about what the furniture will be or what the temperature will be? Why don't we just trust the goodness that we know in this life? Somehow we will not be separated from that goodness in whatever it is to come. Do you remember the story? I think it was Henry Nouwen told the story of twins having a conversation in the womb. And the sister says to the brother, so if imagine twins, they're in the womb, not yet born. And the sister says to the brother, you know, I have this feeling, this trust, this inner knowing that there must be life after birth. And the brother said, you know, don't be silly. This is all there is. This is a dark and cozy place, and we have nothing else to do but cling to the cord that feeds us. Don't be silly, there's nothing more. And his twin sister said, there must be something else. Something more, a place with light, a spacious place where there's freedom and room to move, because I get a glimpse of it every now and then. And she couldn't convince her twin brother. And after a bit of silence, the sister said hesitantly, you know, I have something else to say, but I'm afraid you're not going to like that either. But I actually think there's a mother. And her brother scoffed at the idea and said, what are you talking about? I've never seen a mother. You've never seen a mother. Who put that foolish idea into your head? This dark place is all there is. There's nothing more. And his sister couldn't let go of this idea, this deep sense, this deep inner knowing that there's this mystery of something more. And she said, you know, don't you feel those squeezes every now and then? You know, they're unpleasant, sometimes painful. And the brother protested and said, yeah, what's the big deal about them? And she said, I think those squeezes are there to get us ready for the mystery of what's next. And that we don't need to be afraid. We just need to trust. I often, when I hear that story, I think of that passage in 1 Corinthians where it says, now we see through a glass dimly. There may be a day when we will see face to face. Now we know only in part, but perhaps there will be a day when we will be known and we will fully know. So what do you think of Henry Nouwen's story of life after birth?
Yes, I like it. We all want to go beyond where we are. We all want something more. Give me something more. Oliver Twist asked for something more. Give me something more. And I said, Oliver Twist has asked for something more. What more do you want? Perhaps what we have is all we need. What would it be like if that was the case? What we have is all we need. Is that enough? It may be enough because it may be all you get.
I'm curious, though, that if we entertained some trust that there's something more, if we entertain some trust that we can never be separated in life or death from goodness, as it says, I think the three most powerful words in Scripture in 1 Corinthians 13, where it says, love or goodness never ends. So what I'm really curious about is, if we trusted that, would that allow us to experience what is with less anxiety? Would that allow us to accept that what is right now is enough? If we were able to trust that there is more?
Do we need more? We keep asking, let me have more. But supposing we said, what we have is enough. What we have is good enough. Is enough. Settle for that. If we settle for that, what difference would it make? Would we be more comfortable? Would we be more satisfied? What more do you want?
I think if I'm honest, I fully accept what you're saying, and I completely agree with what you're saying, and how important it is to be focused on the here, the now, and what's in front of us. But I also want to trust that there's a reality greater than this reality. Because I think when I trust that there is a reality greater than this reality, that there is a love that is the ultimate nature of reality that can be trusted both today and in what is to come, I think when I trust that, it helps me to face the things that need to be faced in the now with greater courage. For example, let me just give you an example. I'm quoting scripture a lot. I apologize. But in the very first, if we look at Genesis 1, and both you and I know that Genesis is not a science book. It's poetry. And it's the poet in Genesis trying to describe the nature of creation. It's not meant to be taken literally. It's actually just inviting us to wonder. And you'll notice that after the end of each of the 6 days of creation, there's one sentence, and it says, there was night or evening, there was night, and then morning. Now, we'd probably reverse that order if we were just describing this. We'd probably say we begin with morning and then we end with night. But that's not what it says. It clearly says there was night and then morning. So the poet is not trying to describe how the earth moves around the sun. I'm curious if the poet is trying to describe for us a mystery built into the very fabric of existence, that beyond the night, no matter how long the night might feel like, no matter how dark the night might be, morning comes. Beyond winter, even though the winter might seem to never end, spring always comes. Beyond death, perhaps, there is life, more life. So what if the poet is trying to say to us, well, that's the nature of reality. There's something more. There will always be something more. Because if I'm in the middle, if what I'm experiencing now is the darkness of night that seems like it will never end, or if what I'm experiencing now is a winter that seems to be going on forever, a winter of the soul, perhaps. If I trusted that beyond the night, there is morning, it's going to give me the courage to endure the night.
But it also gives me the hope.
Hope.
To enjoy the new day. So it's not only just enduring what's happened, but enjoying what is coming, what is there for us, the gift. Enjoy the gift. Sometimes we forget to enjoy the gift.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think often we forget to enjoy the gift. Often we forget that every breath is a gift. And I'm just curious myself if kind of holding on to this mystery that, you know, the night doesn't last forever. Morning comes. Will help me to see that even in the middle of the night, even when the night might seem the darkest of all dark, there can be gifts in the midst of that as well. That I missed, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, even the darkness can become a gift. We think that we should get beyond the darkness. But supposing we pause in the darkness, so there it is, that too is a gift. Be present in the darkness. It makes a big difference to how we experience it when we accept it.
I think you're right. And I'm curious whether if we trust again, if I keep pushing this envelope, if we trust that there's some reality greater than the reality of the darkness, it will help us to be able to trust that even in the midst of that darkness, there are gifts to be found.
Well, it's really going just a tiny bit further, saying that the darkness is not the end of it.
Right.
But after the darkness becomes something more, light. And that's the gift of night and day. After the night, there is the morning. Morning, night, morning, night, morning again. The morning comes.
So the morning comes. So what we're really saying in that, and what we're really suggesting, is that even when we experience suffering and death, that perhaps it's not the end of the story. It's not the whole story. It's not the end of the story. There's something more. So if I'm experiencing, you know, deep pain, if somehow I had confidence that that's not the whole story. I mean, it's real. I don't want to convince people, tell people that what you're feeling doesn't matter or isn't real, isn't powerful. But if somehow we are able to trust, yes, it's part of my story, but it's not the whole story. It's not the end of the story. Would that not then help me to live the story I'm in, the story that's really pretty dark, with greater courage? If I knew there's more than this.
Well, you keep saying you want something more.
I do.
Why don't we say, what we have is enough? This is sufficient. The gift is there. Embrace the gift, because that's enough for us to wait on it.
You're right. I do keep saying I want something more. You just kind of helped me kind of look at myself here and make myself aware that I am saying that a lot. I want something more. But I don't think I'm suggesting that's because I'm restless or impatient with what is. I think I'm suggesting that if I trusted there was something more, something greater than this reality, that would actually help me to accept that this is enough. That anxiety I might have, or what's going to happen next, I think I would let go of that. I would just trust. I don't know. As Marcus Borg said, I don't know. I just trust that the goodness that has held me up in this life will hold me up with whatever comes next. So I'm suggesting the two are not opposed to each other, but complement each other.
Yes, yes, we need to say yes to that again and again, that they do complement each other. They're not fully against each other. They're part of the wholeness of our experience of life. They both sit side by side, one on top of the other, one after the other, but they're part of a wholeness. I like that thought.
I mean, I love what you're saying there, because you're really introducing a new idea to a lot of people. This idea that life and death are part of a whole. They're not necessarily separate from each other, enemies to one another, in conflict with each other. They're part of a whole. That death, as I often say, death is the transition into the mystery of something more.
Right, okay. You keep saying that you want something more. Why don't you say, this is what I have. This is what is given. And the given, if I'll let it be, is sufficient. Makes a huge difference. To be able to say, I accept, and I'm satisfied. Because no matter how much you say, I want something more, it doesn't come because you demand it. The more doesn't happen because you demand something more. The more happens also as a gift. Grace. Grace is a gift. It's what's given. Undeserved. There it is.
I think you helped me just now clarify something in my own mind. That I don't think I am insisting there must be something more, because I'm actually not very anxious about it.
Good.
I think what I'm saying is, I trust. there's something more. And somehow that trust that there is a reality greater than this reality helps me live this reality with greater grace and peace. So I'm actually not anxious in saying that there must be something more. I'm more in that sense of I'm willing to bet my life on this one thing that I might be wrong about. That goodness and love never end.
Do you believe that they never end? Because I think sometimes they do end. That's it. Goodbye. It's over. I think we're a little bit afraid about to accept the realities of the end beyond where we are. Suppose we say, that's part of the gift. We are part of something that we can't get hold of. It's that little bit beyond us. And let it be there. Let it be there.
No, I think, what you just said there is getting a hold of something beyond us. Because I think you're right. Sometimes it does end. Sometimes all we know is the night, the darkness of the night. Sometimes all we know is the cold, hard ground of the winter where nothing grows. And that experience is real. I think what I'm saying by trusting that that's not the whole experience, that's not the whole story, that beyond the night, there's this mystery of morning. Beyond winter, there's this mystery of spring. Beyond death, there's this mystery of life. By holding on to that, the possibility of that greater reality that is beyond what my mind can wrap itself around, because that's what mystery, to me, mystery is not the absence of meaning. It's the presence of something I don't really understand. But if I'm willing to entertain and to trust that, when I do experience those moments, and I experience those moments, when it seems like the night will never end, I may be able to hang on and trust that, it's not the whole story or the end of the story. There's more. There I am again. There's more. And then I'm able to wait for it.
Is there, in your words, and all what you're saying, there is the power to believe that something is more, something is beyond where we are, something is greater than we are. Belief is an extraordinary thing. It's important to believe in the other possibility. Believe in the greater good. Believe in something beyond us. Belief is very powerful.
I think it was Desmond Tutu who said, faith is the willingness to believe that goodness is stronger than evil, that there is a love that is stronger than hate, and that there is a light greater than darkness, and a life energy, a life force stronger than death.
Do you believe that? Do you really believe that? Because the reality is that death comes and is very final. I can't pretend that death is still life. Death is an endpoint. Death is death.
You know, do I believe that, you asked? For some reason, my mind is going to the story of Vedran Smailovic during the war in Sarajevo. And Vedran Smailovic, I believe, was the principal cellist in the Sarajevo orchestra. And one day there were people lined up for bread. You know, the Sarajevo experienced so much destruction. I mean, in many ways, like what's happening in Ukraine today. And there were the people were starving and they were lined up for bread in the only bakery that hadn't been destroyed. And a bomb kind of was landed in the midst of them, killing 22 people. Utter destruction, utter death, utter finality, utter despair. I mean, talk about night, talk about winter. It seemed in that moment that there was nothing more but despair and death. The very next day, Vedran Smailovic showed up in the tux that he would wear to perform in the orchestra, carrying a chair and his cello. And he placed the chair in the midst of the destruction and the debris where 22 people had just died. And there is still smoke smoldering from the destruction. And he began to play. And he began to play the most beautiful music you could possibly imagine. And he showed up every day for 22 days, even though he himself was placing himself at risk because bombs were the noise of bombs and shelling was all around. But he showed up for 22 days in honor of all the 22 people who had died. Every day to play this beautiful music. And to me, do I believe that there is a goodness stronger than evil? That there is a beauty that cannot be destroyed? That there is a life force that is stronger than death? Yeah, I'm willing to bet my life that's one of the things I'm willing to bet my life that I'm wrong about. Because when I believe that, when I give my heart to that idea, to that hope, to that trust, that kind of destruction and despair and hate and death is not the whole story, it changes how I live the story that I'm in.
Well, it says afterwards, there's something to be said for what comes afterwards, after destruction, after the terrible things that have happened, after the power of what comes after. Let's search for that. Can we search for what comes afterwards? We know that something will come afterwards, because after we've gone, other people will come and take our place. Something comes afterwards. After this moment, a different light will shine afterwards.
Yeah.
So the power of afterwards is a ceremony in itself.
The power of afterwards. I think that's I think that's how I understand that short little passage in Corinthians where it says that love never ends.
Yeah.
It's the power of afterwards. It's not the end of the story. It's not the whole story. And there I am again. there's something more.
And that's powerful to be able to say what comes afterwards. Because we know that something will come afterwards. After we've gone, someone will come and take our place. After we've sung this song, someone else, or we ourselves, will sing a different song. So the power of afterwards is a reality, and we need to embrace that reality.
The power of afterwards reminded me of, I think I might have shared this before, but Dr. Seuss's book, On Beyond Zebra.
Try me again.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites where if I get it right now, where he says, from beginning to end, from the start to the close, everyone knows Z or Z is as far as the alphabet goes. Then he almost fell flat on his face on the floor when I picked up the chalk and drew one letter more, a letter he'd never dreamed of before. In the places I go and the people I see, I couldn't survive if I stopped at Z or Z. So on beyond zebra, it's high time we were all shown that maybe, just maybe, we don't know all there is to be known.
Very good. Good story.
Do you remember the story of the Rodley brothers?
Try me.
The Rodley brothers, famous trapeze artists that were part of the Barnum and Bailey Circus. And Joseph Rodley was the star of the show. You know, the trapeze where he's flying through the air doing somersaults. And the New York Times came to do an interview of Joseph Rodley. And they asked him, well, what is it like to be the star of the show? And he says, I'm not the star of the show. My brother is. He's up there in the rafters. You can't see him. He's up there in the shadows of the rafters. And he's there. And he catches me every time. And in fact, after I'm done flipping through the air, if I try to grab onto him, if I try to clutch and to grab him, and I'm going to break his wrist, and then we'll be really in trouble. All I have to do is stretch out my arms, open my hands, and he's there. He catches me every single time. And it's knowing that he's going to catch me that gives me the freedom to fly through the air with ease. So I think that's what I mean by the mystery of something more. It's knowing that somehow in the transition from this life to more life, there is a love that will catch us, a reality that will catch us. I don't know what that looks like. I don't need to know what that looks like. I'm not worried about what that looks like. I just trust I'll be caught in the net of that. And that actually gives me the freedom to live in the now that you're talking about with greater ease and greater peace. I mean, when I'm given the privilege, as you've had the privilege many, many times, to sit with people as they're about to breathe their last. I often say, you know, nothing, well, more often than not, I don't see anything. I just hold their hand and I just try to be a presence. But sometimes I'll say, you know, nothing is demanded of you. Nothing is required of you. Just reach out your arms, open your hands, and know that you're going to be caught and you have nothing to fear. Do I believe that? Yeah, I think I believe that.
The important thing is that you communicate to other people that they can believe it.
Yeah.
That the wider group of human beings can believe something beyond where we are. It's believing that there is something more. It's a great gift if you communicate that to people. You trust in yourself, believing there's something more.
And I think the beauty is, and you mentioned it earlier about grace, I think the beauty that I'd want to convey to people is it's okay if you don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Let me believe in it for you. And it's not about us believing in something so that we earn something. It's just about trusting that there is something more that will catch us.
Whereas grace is more than that. It's to stop looking for something and allowing something to come to us. Grace is a gift, undeserved, unmerited, as it comes to us, almost out of nowhere. Almost, perhaps out of nowhere. It just comes, it's there.
I really love that it's this gift that comes to us. Remember the story I told about the twins in the womb and the sister saying, you know, I get glimpses of it every now and then. And, you know, Mary Oliver said, truly we live with mysteries, too wonderful to understand. Yesterday morning, I took my dog to the mountain lakes, and the stillness, we went at sunrise and there was no one there. There was no wind and the water was completely still, where the mountain and the snow that's still on the mountain reflected perfectly in the water. And I don't know how to describe it, but I was overcome by the stillness. So in this world where there's so much despair, so much hurt, so much pain, just for a moment, grace came to me. And I just felt this deep, deep, deep peace within me. And trust that no matter how long or deep the night might seem, morning comes.
You're saying, look again. What is there and what is not there. Let something come to us. That's grace.
Yeah.
It happens.
Well, I'll finish by reminding us of Mary Oliver's poem where she said, truly we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, look, and those who laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. So what happens next? I don't know. And I don't need to know. But I do trust that somehow the goodness I experienced in this life will catch me in the next. And part of that goodness is having this opportunity, even though we're a world apart, to be able to spend a few moments talking about important things and being able to connect with you. So thanks again for an opportunity to share in what I think is important conversations.
Very good. Fully endorse what you say. So pause for a moment and say, this is a good moment. It's only a moment. It's a good moment. Thank you for it.
And thank you.
Well, how does one sum up a conversation like that on such a deep topic? However, two words did jump out at me. They were more and love. Is there more love after death? Big question. I trust that it is so. I have faith that it is so. And I think that I shall play this conversation again and again to try and get a better idea of what might happen after we die. I hope you enjoyed the program, and I'll see you next month. Bye for now.